Welcome to the Creator Spotlight here on the Spotlight on Fightful. I am Steven Jensen, joined as always by Jeremy Lambert. And our guest today is a co-founder of the Scenic City Invitational, one of my favorite, if you want to call it territories, companies in all of independent professional wrestling. I've gone to many shows myself in person, great events all across the board. We are joined by Scott Hensley. Scott, how you doing, man? Thanks for joining the show.
Hey, I am great. Doesn't my background look exactly like I'm in a car?
It's amazing because we were talking about it before we started recording, but knock on wood, but your reception is better than a lot of people when they're just like at home on their Wi-Fi. So this actually, you sound great, you look clear. So we appreciate you doing this and taking the time while you're on your drive right now, man.
Yeah, I know I kind of look shadowy, so I'm a shadowy wrestling promoter.
Oh yes. Well, Scott, thanks for joining us. Like I said, big weekend for you guys with the SCI. We've got the SCI Rumble coming up. I'm looking forward to this. I mean, prestigious event every year. I mean, you guys have been doing this, I believe, since 2017, and pretty much everyone who's won this thing has gone on to become a big deal. So, if you wanted to talk a little bit about the importance of this event coming up here on March the 2nd.
Yeah, with what we do, we really have two goals. The first one being to help local schools or organizations raise a lot of money, and the second goal being to elevate area independent wrestling talent. And we like to have sort of what we call like an all-star game where we bring in the absolute best independent wrestlers that we can find from the Southeast and beyond. And we like to put them head to head and see what happens. And with the Scenic City Rumble, I just think that it's one of those events where if you want to keep following along with what we're doing, then it definitely leads into more, with the winner of the Rumble match getting a spot in our annual Scenic City Invitational Tournament in July, and they get to pick their first round opponent from the field. So it's also just a big spectacle in itself for just casual fans that want to come out and don't really know anything about the wrestlers, don't really care anything about the wrestlers, but just want to see people throwing each other around or flipping on their head or whatever. But it's a really fun event and something that I'm really glad that we get to do. We raised over $7,000 for this school last year, and I'm hoping we do better this year.
Man, awesome. Go ahead, Jeremy.
I was going to say just how the idea altogether came to fruition of like what made you want to be like, all right, look, I want to do this Rumble annually. I want to make it a charity event. Like, how did it all come together initially?
We started the tournament back in 2015. We partnered with a local promotion called Empire Pro Wrestling, and then in 2016 we had the chance to partner with a school. And so the other co-founder of the Scenic City Invitational, his name is Josh Massey. He wrestled as Ace Rockwell, but he had a lot of great contacts with coaches and schools, and so we were able to sort of link up with a school, and we realized, hey, we get this nice venue, we get a clean atmosphere that families feel safe coming to, and then we get this chance to help the community and raise this money while also presenting what we want to present. And so it was a really mutually beneficial partnership, and still is.
I love how, because you guys run family-friendly events normally, like out of high schools, and I like how, like, it's hard to explain where I'm kind of getting at if you don't know, if you haven't seen these shows, but like you've had people like Nick Gage, for instance, involved, but he's able to like not only keep it family friendly in front of that crowd in that venue, he's also the guy with the longest line of fans when the show's over. You know what I mean? And it's like, so it doesn't matter like who it is. You guys can bring in Matt Tremont. You guys can bring in even people you wouldn't think would be a quote unquote family friendly. As a matter of fact, I was live. I can't even remember what year this was. I was live in, I can't remember what high school it was. The name Saudi Daisy always just rings a bell to me. I don't know if it was there or not, but I saw Darby Allin versus Joe Janela like live, years before they became, TV stars. So if you can kind of speak to that also, I mean, just like just the fact that like even though they're quote unquote family friendly shows, you're able to get like a wide variety of talent involved.
Yeah, we've been really fortunate to have a good eye for up and coming talent. A lot of that has been Dylan Hales behind the scenes. Big credit to him and his family for just being there from day one as big fans, and just having a platform that people want to see what we are doing. You know, we have had so many good area guys. You know, I think about guys like from the early days, like Jason Collins and Chip Day and Corey Hollis and Gunnar Miller and Joey Lynch. And, you know, these are all guys that, you know, sort of went on to have a little cup of coffee with WWE, with NXT matches and WWE matches and stuff like that. You know, I mean, none of those guys are doing it for a living, but they are a firm foundation to build off of, and were a great thing to build around. And, you know, we have Jaden Newman right now, who is on his way to Germany and will actually miss the Scenic City Rumble for the very first time. But it's so fun to have a platform where we are able to present people for the very first time. I just think about like festivals for bands, and, you know, you come for maybe a headliner or two or three that you recognize, and then you discover all these awesome bands that you've never heard of, or for us, it's awesome wrestlers that you've never seen before. And, you know, they're on a bigger stage. They're in an environment where you get to see them and learn who they are and become new fans.
Well, so someone you just mentioned, Jaden Newman, if you could elaborate a little bit more on him just specifically, because he's someone we talked about this before. We've had him on the show before, as a matter of fact, to talk about this. But Jaden, y'all were running shows in the high school he graduated from before he was even involved in the SCI tournaments. And it was like a goal of his as a teenager to like get on the shows. I remember when he was too young to get into sup shows because they were like 18 plus or maybe 21 plus, and he couldn't get in. And what's it like to see the progression of him going from literally a fan in his own high school watching this product all the way to being a part of like the decision-making process?
Man, it's the most rewarding thing with what we do, to be the wind in somebody's sails and to give people opportunities that maybe they would not have gotten otherwise, or just to give them opportunities to work towards. And with Jaden, man, I am so proud of him. He actually used to come, it was his middle school that we ran at, and I can remember him and his friend actually asking for my autograph in the stands one time. He still has a hat signed by myself and the other co-founder, Ace Rockwell. He has an NWA Chattanooga hat signed by us. And, you know, little did he know that one day he would be, you know, the Scenic City Invitational champion, that he would be representing the Scenic City all over the world, going to WXW in Germany, getting, you know, footage on the WWE network, wrestling some of the best wrestlers in the world with Timothy Thatcher and Jonathan Gresham and, you know, a who's who. But he was a guy that, you know, he was a kid that sort of got it handed to him early on, with his grandfather buying him a wrestling company. And everybody is like, who is this kid that his grandfather bought him this company? You know, and so we really made him earn it. And he always has stepped up. He always took feedback, and he always went above and beyond to just show that he was way more motivated than we were to challenge him, just above and beyond every time.
I got to ask about the final entrant in this thing, who was announced earlier. I guess it was last week at this point. Corey Ryan Forrester is in this thing. Please tell me how this came together.
So with I kind of went sideways there. I'm still upright. I promise.
Yeah, we can still hear you.
So with Corey Ryan Forrester, he's a guy that, you know, is sort of local to the Chattanooga area, even though he is nationally known, or more than that maybe. But a guy that, you know, I had seen around and heard and seen that he was involved sort of with some with Corey Ryan Forrester, local guy involved with wrestling. You can tell he's super passionate about professional wrestling, and was a buddy of Conrad Thompson. You know, I'd heard him on some of Conrad's podcasts or heard Conrad mention him. And so I had shot him a message actually last year, and he did not get the message before last year's show. But he told me, you know, I would love to try to be involved with something like this, you know, just let me know next year. And so this is next year. It came around, and I asked him, and he said, you know, I'm all in. And it's so different than just some random person that, you know, might have a little bit of clout or something. With Corey, he's a legitimate fan who, I mean, he told me, I guess, Sunday afternoon, he said, this is really living part of my childhood dream. You know, his dream was to be a stand-up comedian, which he's done. And he said, but really, he said, I wanted to be a pro wrestler. And so to get to be a part of helping somebody live their dream is just awesome. But so, I mean, we've had some people that we've partnered with before, with it being schools and coaches and different people. But to have somebody that can get 150,000 plus views on a really entertaining video where they are pushing your show and the important dates and parts of it, you can't ask for more than that. And we are so excited about the Buttercream Dream.
We were just actually talking, myself and Jeremy, for a second about Adam Priest. Would you like to speak on Adam Priest, any style Adam Priest, who, for my money, is one of the best in-ring workers in the whole world, and like the Southeast is known for quite some time. But you know, he's going to be on the show this week, and I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, Adam is he's one of the best wrestlers that you'll find anywhere. He earns his title of any style because he's willing to get in there with anybody and can have a good match with anybody. He is a scrappy guy that I mean, he makes it happen. He's a guy that showed up in 2017. He had wrestled a little bit in Alabama, and we actually had a Joey Mercury seminar at the Scenic City Rumble in 2017. And some little guy showed up and he was very, I would say, I mean, you could tell his heart was really into it. And a lot of times with the seminar stuff, like people will show up in carloads and groups, and you really already kind of know who they are. But he showed up a complete unknown with people, even in the seminar. At one point, Joey Mercury was like, you know, he said something about like, you're getting a little into this, aren't you, or something. Like, I just remember him commenting to Adam Priest about just how into it he really was. And he went to Alabama and evolved through New South, and was able to come back over to us with Scenic City, and, you know, has worked really hard down at Action. He's gotten some shots at AEW. I think he got maybe an NXT match or two. And, you know, he's one of those guys that, you know, every single time when he goes into the ring, he's going to have a good match.
Well, and a guy he's got a lot of history with, it was in a very similar situation, is Derek Neal, who he's wrestling this weekend. If you want to speak a bit on Derek, because he's one of those guys who, like, I remember, like, there was a real, like, people were, like, trying to get him, like, in the NWA at one point. Like, there was, like, a big, like, you know, and I was like, they're crazy to not go for him. They went with, like Silas, Throwbelly Silas, like, you know, and I was like, oh yeah, he makes, you know, he fits in good. But I was like, man, Derek Neal, like, deserves more opportunities. And I think him and Adam Priest are going to be an absolute banger.
Yeah, so Derek Neal is a guy that I first saw probably back in, I would say, the late, well, I would say like 2000 and maybe 9 or 10. So I've been involved with wrestling since 2006. And so I was working for a promotion in Nashville called Saw, and Derek Neal was like a preliminary guy up there. You know, he had done a lot of matches and stuff at the, what was it? The, USWO, maybe the ATL USWO, where they had it at the Stadium Inn. I think he had wrestled there a lot, but he was trained by a guy named Chris Michaels, who is a phenomenal wrestler. Another guy that has never really gotten his flowers in wrestling. But Derek Neal, like those guys, he gets better every single time you see him. And so to have him and Adam Priest, who I looked at their record, and I think they are actually tied at 3 wins each. They have fought 6 times before, so this is a rubber match for them. And Derek Neal, unlike my connection,
Okay.
and I mean, Derek, and to be able to have Derek Neal and Adam Priest on your show, like I made a Twitter post about it, or a tweet on X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it. But I said, do you realize how good your show has to be to put those 2 guys against each other? Because every show that they're on, it's like, you're in with this guy because you play to their strengths. But to have a show as good as we have coming up with the Scenic City Rumble, we were able to put them together, and it's going to be beautiful music.
One last follow up for that. Just so that I don't want to forget to ask, or run out of time. I know you've been, as you mentioned, you've been involved a very long time, like in the wrestling scene. How did you actually like get involved yourself?
I used to go to shows and write show reports, and wrestlers are so hungry for that feedback, and it's cool to see their name online in a report. And so I guess, there was actually 2 ends for me. The first one was in Georgia. I went to a show in Canton, Georgia. I think it was IWE was the promotion. It was run by Josh Wheeler, who runs AWE, or there's some other promotions that he's been involved with in the Atlanta area, but has always had a huge eye for bringing in up-and-coming stars and talent. So I went to one of those shows, and afterwards I had heard that a guy was from Chattanooga, Tennessee, and that guy was Ace Rockwell. So he told me he was putting on a pep rally or a show for a school, and asked if I wanted to come up and referee. And so of all things, like referee. So I actually went up and refereed for Abdullah the Butcher that night. And so that was my first night in wrestling back in 2006. And then I had helped out with some things, but then in 2007 or 8, somewhere in there, a guy in Alabama had actually asked me to come to his show in Scottsboro, Alabama, and it was Christian Haim, which is a guy that I think just deserves a ton of admiration and acknowledgement and respect for the path that he sort of paved out of the Southeast for wrestlers. He's a guy that was going to Chikara and IWA Mid-South and CZW, and was wrestling that sort of Ring of Honor style that combined the Japanese styles and Lucha Libre styles and the not Southern wrestling styles. Christian Haim was not going to go in there and say, he pulled my hair, he pulled my tights, and the old school shtick stuff. But he was a guy that he and like Cabana Man Dan, who is still wrestling, they were work rate guys, and they brought that style into the Southeast. So Christian invited me down to a show in Scottsboro, Alabama, Ultimate NWA, run by a guy named Will Owens, who trained Corey Hollis. But Will saw me there, and he goes, "Hey, do you have any pants?" I said, "What?" He goes, "I need a ring announcer." He goes, "Do you have any pants?" I had cargo shorts on. I said, "No." I said, "This is all I have." So he yells at his nephew, and he says, "Hey, give him your shirt." And so his nephew just takes off a collared shirt and throws it at me. And he goes, "Can you be my ring announcer tonight?" And I said, "I guess." He goes, "No." He said, "There's no guess." He said, "You either can or can't." And I said, "Then I can." And so from there on out, I was able to start ring announcing and learning the ropes down there from a lot of guys that had been involved with like NWA Wildside and guys that had at least worked with people that made money. And so I really got that pedigree of working with them. And then I was able to bring the Chattanooga guys down there to Ultimate NWA and then come back to Chattanooga for NWA Chattanooga, go up to work in Nashville for Saul, worked in Knoxville for Southeastern Championship Wrestling with Dave Marquez. And then I've done Georgia Premier Wrestling in Georgia with Daryl and Woody. They actually hosted AJ Styles' last independent match. So I got to do commentary on that, and it's been a fun ride.
I want to ask how you would assess yourself as a ring announcer being thrown into that first night with somebody else's pants and shirt, basically.
I got the feedback of stop walking around and looking around. But I'm a decently well-spoken and educated person, so and I had a suit later on, not that night, but and I'm going out again.
No, we still got.
Oh yeah, you're fine.
No, you're still good.
Yeah.
So I mean, to have a suit and be decently well spoken and educated, I mean that gives me a little advantage, I guess. And unfortunately, I am taller than like 90% of independent wrestlers. So I'm 6'1", but with shoes and with hair, probably 6'2" or 6'3", and so that's unfortunate, but it's fun.
I do want to ask on a follow up to that of memories from AJ Styles' last independent match in that show.
AJ is one of my all-time favorite wrestlers. I grew up in Middle Tennessee going to TNA shows, and afterwards I would hang out and try to meet people and stuff. And one time I did get to meet AJ, and he's just the most down-to-earth, nice guy ever. He's a real human being, unlike some of the guys that just can't get out of character, which some of them it's really like it's admirable to some of them, and then some of them it's just really weird. But AJ is a good guy. He's a normal guy, and so to be able to work that show, that last independent show with him, it's a dream come true. It really was. We didn't think he was going to show up. He actually was on a WWE show in California on Friday night before that show. And the promoter, Greg Hollander, who our Scenic City Invitational trophy is actually named after, he told everybody, AJ says he's coming, and I believe AJ. So we were like, okay, I guess we believe you and we believe AJ. And well, he's in California with WWE the night before. Really, Woody? Is he really coming? And true to his word, he's a guy of character, and he showed up. He had already debuted at the Royal Rumble. He was already on the road with WWE, and he comes back to honor that last commitment. And to be able to call his last match and to be able to see him wrestle Corey Hollis, which was a guy that I had started with at Ultimate NWA in Alabama. It was really cool. It was really special. And AJ addressed the crowd after that match, and he yelled at one of his sons. It may have been the son that just signed to play like college baseball, but he yelled at him, and like his son was like watching like a phone or something. He wasn't even paying attention. So I just remember that. But the match was good. AJ's great, and what an experience.
That is kind of insane. I'm looking at the cage match. They always reference cage match, but yeah, debuts at the Rumble after doing all of his independent shots and everything in the UK. He does all that. Debuts at the Rumble. Wrestles Chris Jericho on Raw. Wrestles Curtis Axel on SmackDown. Wrestles The Miz on SmackDown. Then faces Corey Hollis at GPW. It's so weird little thing that you would not think of because he was on WWE television at this point. That is insane.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Sorry to say, you mentioned Corey Hollis, and I just wanted to follow up on this real quick because Corey Hollis, he's a former winner of the Rumble itself. Are you aware of the fan that he got to never show back up to wrestling ever again. That people were calling the hype back years ago. Do you know about this?
No, I don't.
So there was this fan who I can't take credit for the name, but like the name we would call him the hype. It would be like Righteous Jesse and Steve McCash and like all the guys kind of involved with Suck. We all had this name for him called the hype because this guy would come to shows and it was happening for a while. And he would bring a replica NXT title belt and he was super into the show. He's the kind of fan you want to a degree, but he would take it way too far. Like when there was no noise happening, it was just nonstop chanting and it got like obnoxious. And then he eventually tried to become a part of the show and got up on the ring apron during a match. And Corey Hollis basically punked him so hard that we never saw him again. So, just want to throw that out there. There's going to be some people who hear this interview that are going to really get a pop from just even hearing the hype being brought up. And we never saw him again. And we can all thank Corey Hollis for that. So I wanted to put that out there.
It sounds like Corey, yeah.
Yes. Another guy that means a lot to the Southeast scene. A guy who I actually, years ago, I attended his retirement match. It was a long time ago. Tank. Still out there doing it. Yeah. So, can you speak to the importance of Tank in the SCI and in the Southeast? He'll be wrestling this weekend as well for you guys.
Yeah, it's just amazing that Tank is still going. You know, he still has gas in that tank, so to speak. You know, he's a guy. He started wrestling in 1996. He's wrestled Abdullah the Butcher, Terry Gordy, Demolition Axe, Big Boss Man. You know, all these old school Southern guys. And then he's also wrestled like the current crop of just superstars of Samoa Joe, AJ Styles, Seth Rollins, Claudio, Timothy Thatcher, Matt Riddle, you know, all these guys that are currently stars. And he is timeless. He goes through all of the ages. He goes through all of the styles. You know, he is a guy that he can hang, and he's, you know, he retired and he took some time off, and like he's admitted that like he just wasn't enjoying wrestling. And I think it really changed around that time that he retired. You know, that's about when sort of the AEW group sort of started coming to power and rising up. And I think some of the old school psychology went out the window, and I think you know, intergender started more, and some smaller wrestlers were getting bigger opportunities. And you know, I think I'm kind of putting some words in his mouth there, but he was not enjoying some of that. And I think he realized that he just loved wrestling, and he realized that there's still stories to be told with all of those things that I just mentioned. And, you know, he came back, and, you know, he's battled, you know, since he came back. Timothy Thatcher reached out to the Scenic City Invitational and TWE asking to wrestle Tank. You know, so that was the story last year, and a 100% true story from last year's Scenic City Invitational Tournament. But Tank is one of the pillars of Chattanooga wrestling and of Scenic City Invitational for sure. So to have him around and to have him come back and enjoy doing what he does and in great shape, you know, he's still got a family and got young kids, and he's so young at heart. He really is, and he's working hard and still having good, entertaining matches, and it's awesome to see.
I would kind of piggyback off of talking about Tank. I want to ask about Cruel and him coming and defending the title this weekend. And you know, he's back at MLW now. He's well traveled, been on television, but having Cruel on this show.
Yeah, I mean, Cruel was a guy that the former Logan Creed. I don't think I'm spoiling anything. I'm not spoiling anything for anybody there. But
I was one of the guys, Scott. Just so you know, when he was doing the Mads Kruger thing a while back in MLW, but he was doing the Logan Creed thing pre-Cruel. I was really like, he's not showing his full abilities on MLW like at all.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And Cruel is one of those things that it's just an evolution. He's always had the athletic ability. He's always had a really good wrestling mind. He is a great guy to work with. actually, like at one of our, I think in between our Futures event and the night 2, he was walking around picking up trash. Like, I mean, he's one of those wrestlers that you want at every single show you do, because he makes everything that much better. He makes everyone around him better. And I think people see him, see what he's doing, and they want to achieve that. He has an action figure that's sold out now. And so, I wish him nothing but the best. And I am so glad that we can still get to have him on a local independent show.
Yeah, he's killing it everywhere he's at. He's can't miss, super talented. I love seeing all the success he's having with the IWTV championship and everything. Like, I feel like he really deserves it. And even if you're not a wrestling fan, like, you see that guy for the first time and you're like, oh my God, who's going to beat this guy? And then you see him do like a tope suicida and you're like, wait, what? Like, he can do this too. So, I mean, I think he's a really special player as well. Someone else that I want to make sure to get your thoughts on, and someone who, I hate saying this because he's going to hear this, and I have a list of people like that I want to get on the show, and it's just like all a matter of timing, just like wrestling. It just like comes down to the timing. I have, for the longest time, probably the longest on my list has been Matt Griffin, that we haven't had on. That, like, I've almost every few weeks, I'm like, all right, I got to reach out to Matt, and it's just like, all right, well, maybe the next action show I'll reach out, then like something will come up, and I'm just like, can you speak on Matt? Because he obviously is a big part of what you guys are doing with the SCI now, and I think he does great stuff with action wrestling and just the whole Southeast in general.
Yeah, Matt Griffin was a guy that I probably talked to for the first time on MySpace in probably 2000, and I want to say 2002 or 3. Like, it was just like I added random wrestlers, and like I just would message guys, and like he was really cool to me, JC North from NWA Wildside. And then years later, we do the Scenic City Invitational Tournament, the very first one, 2015, and a guy named Al Getz, who is actually going into, I saw the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame in Waterloo, Iowa, for his work with the analytics stuff that he does. I mean, just amazing stuff. So Al Getz showed up to Scenic City to film it, and his cameraman, Matt Griffin, JC North. So Matt has actually been at every single Scenic City Invitational Tournament. He's a guy that I saw the passion in him. I saw that he was itching to get back in. He's a smart business guy. He has legitimacy, a former Marine, a former wrestler, a guy that, did some TNA spots, wrestled AJ Styles. He has so many credentials and things that you want to be involved with your show. And so we started sort of bringing him on board. And when some other partners went to the wayside, he was a guy that I said, Matt, I would love for you to be my partner in Scenic City. And fortunately, we have had a great partnership. He's about the only one that will put up with me for more than one tournament. I'll draw a timeline one time. Like, if you go look at like Wikipedia at like bands that have a lot of different members, like it'll show a timeline of like, this guy's been in the band this long. And so I'll make one of those for Scenic City Creative one day. Not many people last, but Matt was a guy also that you mentioned, action wrestling, and that's what he runs now down in Georgia. And I think they have, because they run more often and they run such good shows, they've really surpassed what we do with Scenic City, because they run, more frequently, and I think they have just as big, if not bigger, of a platform than we do and following now. But Matt's killing it down there, and he follows the sort of what I wanted to do with Scenic City. And I remember him asking me, like, what do I do? How do I go into these schools? How should I approach them? I want to help raise money, and I want to give wrestlers a platform like you're doing. And so I sent him crowd pictures and was like, here's the formula, and here's what you tell them. And make sure they want to know that you have an insurance policy. They want to make sure that you're bringing safe people in and you're going to protect people. And that you're going to raise them money, and he's been able to do that, and it's been great working with him, and he's an absolute godsend.
Scott, as we start to kind of wind down here, the thing we ask everybody on this show is the coolest thing in your room.
Well,
if you can show us your connection, we'd appreciate it.
Okay. Let's see. So I'm a big fan of like old school territory wrestling, and I really enjoy going and meeting some of those guys and just hearing about basically like when it was real. And one of the guys that I got to go meet, I have a large autograph collection, but one of the guys that I got to go meet was actually here's Don Fargo. So if I can figure that out.
we had a clear. There we go.
Yeah.
To Scott.
So and I'm sure there's negative things that people could say about Don Fargo's lifestyle or choices or whatever, but he was one of those territory guys that just, it was real when he was doing it. Like, he got shot and he had to run from biker gangs, and he did every gimmick in the world, and it's just interesting to meet those people that really lived that lifestyle back in the day. And so in looking around in this room, that's one of the cooler things, I think.
One last question I got for you. I guess it's a question. I just wanted to bring up, like, I know you guys have a lot of fans, like the Southeast scene. I know this so well, and I talk about this scene so often because I live in Atlanta. I lived in Nashville previously, so these are the companies that I have been paying attention to for a long time. I give guys like Dylan Hales a lot of credit as far as like getting me back. Like, I've always been a wrestling fan. I was never one of those people that like stopped watching it. I've always been into it, but my interest was really waning. A handful of years ago, and like a lot of the talent that you guys would find through the SCI, through Action, through SUP and stuff, really, really, really helped me as a fan. Like, and it just reinvigorated to the point where I honestly don't think I'd be sitting here doing anything with Fightful at all if I hadn't have like gotten in on becoming a fan of this scene years back. So I appreciate it a lot, which all you guys do, and I know that you guys have a lot of loyal fans, people that will travel from state to state for these matches and these shows. You mentioned Conrad Thompson earlier. I've seen him live at Scenic City before, live in the house. But I think maybe your biggest fan might be Ben Boston Nuga. I see him in everything. I've met him in person. I've been around the two of y'all together in Atlanta before at GCW. Can you speak on Ben and I guess just like the hardcore, like the loyal fans that you guys got?
Yeah, when I think of the heart and soul of like Scenic City fandom, I think of Papa Hells, I think of Ben, I think of Eric Crowder, I think of Chuck and Ashley from TWE, and we really wanted to not just do one single promotion that just does wrestling. We wanted to create like a mini territory. We wanted to create something that people can follow along with and that feels like a bigger deal, because it is. And people like Ben and Papa Hells and Eric and all those, they're so important. They keep the conversation going. They create the atmosphere at the shows where people know that these are stars, that this event means something. And, with somebody like Ben, he adds humor to it as well. He's one of the best Twitter follows that you can do. But Ben is also a guy that, I don't think he would mind me sharing this, but he just talks about the connection that he made with Scenic City back in 2015 because he was going through some personal stuff. And he said that, he had just gone through that personal stuff. And then like he just wanted an escape. And that escape was Scenic City. We were there. And I just think about that every time I run a show. Some people may know I run a Facebook profile called Noah Tall. And I made a post on there that said, your wrestling event may be the only thing someone has to look forward to. And I really believe that, every time we go out there, we're doing, grown men fake fighting on the surface, if you want to break it down into the harshest way. But ultimately, it's passionate people that are going out there, putting their bodies on the line, telling stories, overcoming the odds, and really just trying to live their dream. And I think it's so inspirational. It's so fun to watch, and just everything about just professional wrestling, and especially independent wrestling and Southeastern independent professional wrestling. I think it's so passion filled and inspirational, and just something that I think anybody can really get something from watching. And I'm so glad we have that connection with so many people, and especially people like Papa Hells and Ben.
That's beautiful. That's a great, I can't add any more to that. That's awesome.
Scott, we appreciate you joining us tonight. Let everybody know where they can find you at, where they can support the SCI, the tournament and the Rumble, and what everything just going on with the show this weekend.
Yeah. So I am Scott C. Hensley on Twitter and on Facebook. Feel free to give me an ad or a follow there. My promotion, of course, is Scenic City Invitational on Facebook, SCI Tournament on Twitter. And we have a big show coming up, 7 big matches live on IWTV, or you can come in person in lovely Appleton, Tennessee. And it is going to be Saturday, March the 3rd at East Hamilton Middle School, the Scenic City Rumble. We have 6 featured bouts, and then a Scenic City Rumble match, 30 entrants, and there will be one winner. That person will win a spot in the Scenic City Invitational Tournament coming up July 12th and 13th in Red Bank, Tennessee. And you can get your tickets at the door or scIwrestling.com.
Again, Scott, we appreciate it, guys. All the links are below, or you can support Scott, support SCI. And guys, we'll be right back here on the Spotlight.